G'day guys, hope you're all doing well today again. Welcome back to another episode on the channel or the podcast. So today I want to talk about a topic that I reckon everyone listening has just about experienced and or is experiencing at some point in their life. And this can occur during school, work, sport, hobbies, like literally everything and anything that you put your life to and put your time to. It can occur, and that's burnout. So it is a real thing. And a lot of people think that it's just like some made up scenario or psychological thing that people put into their head, but no, it's real. Like it's literally included as an occupational syndrome with the World Health Organization, which is an occupational syndrome is like a condition or like disorder that is caused within the workplace. And so when burnout occurs, it has these three consistent key elements that I've realized with researching for this episode and doing my own little stuff like reading. And first one being emotional exhaustion. Second one, generalized negativity. And the third one is overconsumption of situation and or environment. So burnout usually consists of taking like acute or like small stress cycles throughout the days and weeks in whatever you're doing, whether that's work or your hobby. Again, like what I mentioned before, in sports, in all different scenarios, it occurs. And these small stress cycles accumulate over time, and most of them are always incomplete. And what I mean by that is incomplete stress cycles are series of parts of your day where you become stressed, your boss gives you a massive load of work to complete within like a short period of time, or whatever situation you can think of that makes you stressed out. An incomplete stress cycle is basically without having the relieving feeling of completing it, or constantly feeling stress, or where the stress isn't relieved. And so these small little things eventually build up over weeks and days, and over time, they slowly cause you to experience one of the elements that I mentioned before, the emotional exhaustion, generalized negativity to whatever it is that you're doing, and overconsumption of your environmental situation. And this topic was written in my notes for ages, but I didn't think to make the episode because I thought it wouldn't be long enough or good enough. But I've realized that I've got enough evidence in my real life that I can talk to you guys about that shows how impactful it actually is. One of them being with my dad. So my dad is like, both my parents are the most ridiculously hardworking people, but dad has like this ability to just like push through a mental pain barrier so far to the point where he just doesn't care anymore. So, like backstory on my dad, like grew up in Noble Park. At 16, dropped out of school, went straight into a trade, did a 3-year apprenticeship, got that, did more trade, and then eventually he thought, you know what, I want to go into culinary school. I want to become a chef. So early 20s, he goes into culinary school, does the whole course, becomes a chef, certified like through whatever university or course that he did. And then he ends up working for a few restaurants around like Melbourne. And so like the one that he worked at the longest for, I'm pretty sure, was the Harp in St. Q. And for the small amount of viewers like in the US and Canada, the Harp in Melbourne, like in Q, is like a average local pub where like people in the area just go to for a pub meal. Like it's nothing extravagant. It's like the biggest time for them is probably like Christmas Eve, where they could just get a bunch of like young people coming around for a drink because it's like a good local area to go to where it just pops off on Christmas Eve. and like some rare, like really like some other celebrations really. But he did that for a while, worked some fucking ridiculous hours, and then he chose to open up his own cafe. He got the opportunity to open up a cafe in Port Melbourne called Port Espresso, and he was working there for around 3-4 years off memory. And like some of the hours that he would work were just fucking ridiculous. Like he'd work 13-hour days. Like he'd get up at 4 a.m. because he'd be the barista as well as owning the cafe. So he'd have to get up super early, prep the coffee machine, prep all the food, get everything ready, presented, and then serve all the early tradies that come through basically by himself or with one or two other employees if he was lucky. And around school holiday time, he would get samurai who were meant to come in at 9, but would eventually just come in at 10 because we just, to be honest, we really couldn't give a fuck to go in. And he had that business for, like 4 years until like 2020 when COVID hit, and running the cafe was just too fucking hard. Like he had to pay rent. He had to just like sit around and wait for lockdown to like loosen up so that he could still earn money through that, like through the cafe. And yeah, he'd be working like 4 a.m. to 5 p.m. every single day for roughly 3-4 years, except for like holiday seasons, some public holidays, birthdays, and COVID lockdown. And I remember recently I asked Dad about like being a chef and running the cafe, and I actually asked him like, how did you like not burn out of doing the cafe and becoming a chef? Like having to work some ridiculous hours some days where you'd work like as a chef, you work like 15, 16 hours some days just because that's how it is. And I asked him, I was like, how'd you not burn out? And he just goes like, I did. Like it's so hard mentally more than physically to thrive as a chef and also owning your own cafe. Eventually you just mentally detach from like that idea of becoming a chef over time. And now he actually just like hates cooking for us. But since mum controls him, he just does what he says. But yeah, I asked him that and he's like, I literally just like have to keep like pushing through. Like I know I'm going to get to the end of the day and eventually think, good, I got to the end of the day. Like that's good for me. I'm happy that I did that. And his brain is just wired differently. And I think it's kind of the way he grew up, like having to work a lot harder than I'd say, obviously people our age. I feel like in my dad's age, a generation, they had to work a lot harder than we did to get to a good situation. Whereas now, kids are fucking making clips on TikTok and getting paid like 20K a month just to do that. And they're thriving just as young people because they don't have to pay for anything. And then they're just making clips and earning like a ridiculous amount of money from it. Yeah, his brain is generally just wired differently. Like an average day, like a weekday for dad owning the cafe is wake up at 4 a.m., get dressed and ready, head straight to the cafe, prep the coffee machine, prep all the food, get everything presented, yada yada. Work through the day, get everything, cleaned and ready for the morning. He'd head back home after a 13-hour day, sit down for about half an hour to an hour, have a drink, then he'd start cooking dinner for everyone. And he'd cook dinner, and then he'd just rest, and then he'd go to bed at like 8:30, and he did that just about every day. And so I think it's people like that, like my dad, where they're so rare to have that kind of like discipline to push mentally that far, like knowing they have to do something So they're going to do it. They don't think, oh, I have to do it, but I can do it tomorrow, or I can just slack off today or take a break. And I think that's personally where I get a lot of my discipline from. It's like through my parents, like they're able to push so far mentally past like that pain barrier. And with that idea of like pushing like psychologically through, like past that kind of barrier, like recently, especially on like TikTok and Instagram Reels, we get a lot more of these accounts, like these motivation accounts, posting like David Goggins, Chris Williamson, Alex Hormozy, all that stuff. And it's like these people, there's kind of a hustle culture that's like a rise in social media recently. And like some of the absolute freaks that are involved in this, it's all a lot of successful business people like Alex Hormozy, Gary Vee, Iman Ghazi, and then you've got people who go even further past the hustle culture, and it's like Andrew Tate and Luke Belmar. Luke Belmar, he's the Johnny Walker guy who's just gone. He's become an absolute meme because of that. Because some of the stuff that he says is just like so ridiculous and like weird. Like it's just it is just odd. Like the Johnny Walker thing, it's like, what the fuck? Like you're researching a lot about some guy for him to be able to like you, unless it's a respect thing. It's like pretty full on. But it's also like there was another clip that my brother was telling me about where he's talking to like these kids and they're like, oh, I do, like one kid says I do crypto and then he meets another guy and he says he does the same thing and he just points at both of them and goes, connect, connect, connect. And I'm just listening, I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, but these people, like, in a sense, it's just like my dad, like, the way they think and like their mentality to things are just so abnormal to everyday people that, like, even myself, like, I actually just don't understand it. Like, I just think I think outside the box and I work pretty hard for different things, but some people are just wired differently to me. And like the things that they do and think are just so full on. But they absolutely have a place in trying to like get like my generation to be tougher and harder workers and become more successful and aim for bigger goals. Like some of the guidance that they give is like amazing. Like Andrew Tate has said a lot of stupid shit, like a lot of dumb stuff. But there are like especially recently, there are definitely moments after this whole scandal with his allegations and all that stuff, where he actually says stuff. He says a lot of admir- admirable, admirable things. Can't even say it. He says a lot of admirable things that, like, is like he's giving wisdom to like younger people, especially with, you know, chasing your goals and occasionally some of the stuff that he says about his respect to women and how you treat a woman and his traditional values and all that stuff. Some of it is great advice, but on the other hand, a lot of the stuff that these guys say is pretty overwhelming and hard for people to follow, especially in my generation, because how much easier we have it. And it's likely why they give that sort of advice, because they are giving these messages to the people who have that drive to become the best and most successful person, and to listen to them and like have the kind of work rate that they have. Like that's their target audience, like hard workers. That's who they're messaging to. And linking that to burnout, it's these guys that push people my age to go as far as they possibly can. And it's usually with this hustle culture that a lot of people try to follow, and they try to push their boundaries as far as they can, and they go beyond so early that they eventually burn out and they can't go any further. They give up. They think, oh, it's not possible. I can't do this. It's too hard. Like, how am I supposed to get this far? He's over here and I'm over here. When it's all, a lot of it is mental. That's what burnout comes from. It's mentally draining. Like, the emotional exhaustion, that is all mental. Like the overstimulation from being in the same situation and doing the same thing over and over again. It's all so mental. And a lot of the times when people try to go down that path of, online businesses or creating a brand or doing like the TikTok stuff, they go so hard so early and then expect instant gratification, instant success. And to get to the point where, like, Alex Hormozy, who I've only just recently, like, brought a really big like into with his content, he was doing podcasts for 8 years before he got into the top 10 of business podcasts. He did 3 podcasts every single week, never missed a week, never missed an episode for 8 years straight before he got onto the top 10. They expect to get that kind of success straight away, and it sets them up straight away for failure. And I know it's easy to keep blabbering on about how people fail and different, like, things that happen throughout the whole burnout situation and not have any sort of advice for it. And so that's why, with like all these psychological effects that occur when you're experiencing burnout, like some people experience depression, anxiety. I personally experienced seeing others go through that, you know, emotional numbness through those kind of journeys, and they kind of separate themselves from who they were before to when they started. And it's all through like mental drainage and overwhelmingness of the whole journey. And so I'm going to now give some strategies that I've used personally to delay burnout and ensure that burnout doesn't occur throughout whatever you're doing, like your hobby or sport, all different situations. The first one is documenting what you know and what you can do and what you've done at the very start of whatever it is that you're doing. So even if it's just like a mental note, say you're trying to learn the guitar, write down what you know, what you can do, and keep that note, and then start trying to play the guitar maybe like 20, 30 minutes a day or an hour in a day. And do that for a week or two. And then write down what you know then, or even after a month, write down what you know at the end of that month. And see what kind of progress you've made. And that will help eliminate that chance of you being like, oh my God, I don't know anything. I don't know how to do this. I'm not getting any results, when you think you're not getting any results, but in reality you are. And that's why these mental notes, or even putting notes in your phone, is so important to keep yourself in check and making sure that you don't just instantly give up. Okay. The next one, this one's more applied to like your work and your studying and all that stuff. And that's to include the macro and micro breaks. So, obvious Macro, big, which means like hours of the day or even days. And then micros, really small. So few minutes, like very, very, very small breaks. And so in your macro breaks, you should be filling it with things away from whatever task you're doing. So an example is if you're taking a macro break from your office job, or this should be like a day off, don't touch your emails, do not answer unnecessary calls, stay off your phone, see friends, family, wake up at the same time that you do for work, because this will set you up to wake up not feeling tired and not feeling like shit every day for work because you're constantly doing the same thing over and over again. You're creating a steady sleep cycle. Again, work on your hobbies, exercise, get outside, like be in the sun, be in your environment. All these things will aim to take your mind away from whatever work it is that you have to do or that you're doing and help you maintain your work rate in the office. And so then in your micro breaks, it should literally be like 2 to 5 minutes, like really, really short. And this is including in your actual like lunchtime breaks. So there's like, if you're at the desk, this should literally just be like a short mental break from whatever work that you're doing in that situation, like currently in that situation. So this literally just involves you, like, for example, say you type on the computer, you're doing a task, and you're like, fuck, I'm getting really tired. Give yourself like 5, 10 minutes and just keep pushing through that. And then if you're still really, really tired and you're like, oh, I actually need to stop. Literally stop typing, turn around, like stretch your arms out, look out the window, or like just walk around, walk to the toilet, just stand up and just move, just get away from the laptop and do not look at anything else. Like stare at the wall, at the window. If you need some sort of if you have some sort of environment near you, like a balcony or like anything that gets you outside, go outside for just 2 to 5 minutes. These breaks are just there to be performing for your entire shift and getting smaller as it the little stress cycles that you might be experiencing throughout the day or that week. And just decreasing those stress cycles will cause you to burn out at a slower rate or even just stop you burning out entirely. And from research, these are the top 3 best proven ways to avoid burning out. And the first one is obviously going to be sleep. So you have to prioritize 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep each night. Like I said before, waking up at the same time that you would for work develops a consistent sleep schedule, even on weekends especially, because most people treat weekends as like a big sleep-in day. Sometimes you should actually not do anything, but waking up at a consistent hour of the day makes it easier for your body to decide when to and when not to fall asleep. Being well rested means that you don't have to go into work with an exhausted body or mind. This can then deflect chances of you having a negative mindset towards whatever tough. So this is pretty tough against burning out. So if you're going to work with the negative mindset, you're going to produce shit thing, basically. The next one is social interactions inside and outside the workplace. So inside, you really want a workplace where you can social and get along with the people in there. And then outside the workplace, you want to make sure that you're prioritizing seeing your mates. That puts time away from work and decreases the chances of you just having more stress cycles over the stuff that you need to get done. Last one is regular exercise. This can be like an early morning walk before work or some sort of high intensity exercise like 2 or 3 times a week minimum. This can be like a run, Pilates, hot yoga, gym, or like any sort of like competitive sport, something like that. And to reduce your chances of becoming stressed in the workplace and feeling more at ease. But that brings us to the end of the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if there's any episodes or topics or people that you want me to have on, shoot me a message in the comments, Instagram, anything, and let me know what you want me to talk about. I love learning about new topics that I have nothing to do with or idea of. So yeah, let me know what you want me to talk about, what segments you want to see, what new stuff you want to see, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.